Assessment is not just about grading students' papers or giving them a test and assigning them a letter grade after the learning is done. No. These would be examples of summative assessment, but today I'm going to be talking about formative assessment and the ways formative assessment can be done through conversations with your students. In formative assessment, teachers recognize and respond to student learning to enhance that learning during the learning. It helps teachers to identify students' strengths and weaknesses, where students are understanding the concepts being discussed in class, and where students could use more instruction. Unlike summative assessment, where teachers aim to assess how much a student learned after the learning has taken place, formative assessment's main purpose is to aid or improve student learning rather than simply attributing a grade. Basically, formative assessment helps teachers know how to teach better. Clinchot and others in their article Better Formative Assessment find that we can think of formative assessment as an ongoing cycle with multiple phases. Phase 1 is eliciting students' ideas. 2, noticing the substance of students' thinking. 3, interpreting to make sense of students' ideas. And 4, acting to guide and support student learning. Godbout and Richards similarly describe the facets of formative assessment, which include the communication of expectancies to students, followed by teachers' collection of information, which echoes the first, second, and third phases of Clinchot and others' formative assessment cycle, and lastly, the regulation of learning, which similarly to Clinchot and others, refers to the action teachers take in light of this data they've collected on their students. Step 1. Elicit students' thinking. If you want to get an idea of how strongly your students are grasping the course content, you need to hear from them. We need to uncover how students make sense of ideas and reason through problems, rather than only measure whether students know particular facts or can carry out certain procedures. Let's take a look at the secondary English teacher trying this out and see how they do. Okay, so we're talking about the difference between topic and theme. So is this a topic or a theme of Romeo and Juliet?
Theme?
It's a topic. So notice here, the teacher didn't attempt to get any information on the students' thinking. Teachers should avoid using closed follow-up questions to quickly guide students to correct answers, which is pretty much what happened here. The students' roles were also pretty passive in this scenario, and the teacher didn't really provide any opportunity for students to ask questions. So those would be two areas that could be improved as well. So instead of whatever we just saw, as teachers, we should be assigning what Clinchot and others call rich tasks. Rich tasks elicit student thinking by asking questions that draw upon students' prior knowledge. So let's try that again. Okay, so we've talked about how topics are the subject matter discussed in the material. Meanwhile, theme is the central message of the story. It's not explicitly stated in the story. So keeping that in mind, what is a theme in Romeo and Juliet? Here, students are asked to rely on knowledge they already have, the story of Romeo and Juliet, and be a more active participant in their learning. They have to come up with a theme themselves. Clinchot and others find teachers should keep in mind what this rich task is intended to reveal about students' thinking. In this case, the answer students come up with will reveal whether or not they know how to distinguish a topic from a theme. Other rich tasks can include asking students to make predictions, identify possible causes for a phenomenon, create initial models to explain an event, design a solution to a problem, or choose the best product for a particular purpose. Notice how these are all open-ended tasks and require students to actively participate in order to come up with an answer. Okay, the next step in the cycle of formative assessment is for teachers to notice the substance of students' thinking. Noticing students' productive ideas or reasoning strategies is hard to do if, as the teacher, you already have the answer you want to hear locked in your mind. Basically, what I'm saying is you have to listen closely to your students' answers. Let's take a look at an example of a teacher doing a bad job of this. Let's hear what you came up with for the theme of Romeo and Juliet. Okay, yeah.
2 teenagers from rival families fall in love?
No, that sounds like a topic. Anyone else? Bad. When practicing responsive noticing, wrong answers are not dismissed but analyzed, and right answers are not accepted without justification. So here's some good examples. Okay, so let's hear what you came up with for a theme for Romeo and Juliet.
Two teenagers from rival families fall in love.
Okay, two teenagers from rival families fall in love. Now, what larger message or opinion is that conveying? Okay, pause. So again, the student has provided a topic instead of a theme. Notice here that the teacher hasn't specified that the student's answer is right or wrong. Instead, they've offered another open-ended question to try to encourage thinking that'll get students on the right track. Let's see how students are doing with this question. Nice. The teacher here is using wait time, a strategy Keeley recommends. Some students need more time to respond to questions. You want to hear from all students, not just the ones that are more vocal. Ideally, this question will have students realize that the last response they shared is a topic and doesn't quite fit the criteria for a theme. Next, it's time for interpreting to make sense of students' ideas. Whether or not the answer your student provides is correct, you should take care to notice the reason behind their answer. Understanding their reasoning is easier if you already have an idea of common learning pathways students take to arrive at the concept you're teaching. Teachers should hypothesize about the prior knowledge, reasoning, problem-solving strategies, and partial or alternative understandings that may be guiding students' explanations and possibly constraining their thinking and actions. So let's see this teacher try. They think that topic is a theme. Maybe they weren't listening. If you're not sure what the students' reasoning was to get to their answer, you can just ask them. Asking students to explicate their reasoning. This encourages students to go deeper with their thinking and be more explicit when explaining their ideas. It helps them to focus on the evidence that supports their answer choice and builds upon the reasoning of others. So they're definitely mislabeling that topic as a theme. But why? Maybe some of the wording in my definitions was unclear. Can you explain your reasoning as to why that statement is a theme?
This is a theme because the author never says those exact words. We learn that themes are not explicitly stated by the author, but are up for readers to interpret them.
At this point, the teacher can use this information to infer or hypothesize that the student doesn't understand what qualifies as explicitly stating in a text. So then, the teacher knows they just need to explain what they mean by explicitly states in this context. This brings us to the last step in the formative assessment cycle, action to scaffolding learning. At this point, you've prompted your students to share their understanding. You've listened, interpreted, and hypothesized about where their confusion or the gap in their knowledge lies. Now it's time to take action by adjusting your instruction to target those misunderstandings. One way to do this is, again, open-ended questions. More open-ended questions and follow-up questions can help to scaffold students' thinking and understanding. So, if it's true that the author isn't explicitly stating this information, how are we getting it? Since here the students' misunderstanding is small, it might be appropriate to use a more prescriptive style of teaching. So here you could just take the route of explaining to the student that explicitly stating elements of the plot doesn't necessarily always just happen through exposition. And that's it. Those are the 4 steps to formative assessment. But remember, like I said, this is a cycle. So after you make those clarifications, target those misunderstandings, the cycle will begin again as new information comes into the fold. And remember, formative assessment has to be a regular and ongoing activity included in everyday instruction. So I hope this helped you gain a deeper understanding of formative assessment. I'll see you in the next video, and happy teaching!